Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know that my guests and I are always excited that you join us every week. So here's the deal, right? As we journey through life and we hear that word change, oh my God, right? Our heart kind of palpitates. We go to those cold sweats. Change is hard at times, especially if it's thrust upon us. If we choose it, it could still be a tumultuous road or journey. So to help you on your journey of change, at the core, I believe it boils down to having good communication skills so that we can really communicate with ease and grace and minimize those tumultuous kind of experiences when change is happening. So in the show notes, you will find my communication style assessment, my gift to you. You get 2 reports. You know the routine. One, spotlighting your natural superpowers. The second will spotlight really your lowest score, which is typically a blind spot. So read both. I hope they help you navigate change in your life with ease and grace. Now, my motivational quote, really to set the stage for the topic with my guest today, is by Annette Simmons. And Annette says, when you begin to talk in stories, your black and white words turn into color. Your drab requests turn into a mission. People find you to be more compelling. And once that happens, others will see that stories work and they'll start telling stories too. So as a multisensory learner, I learn so much easier if I could see, hear, and then, of course, try out whatever that new skill is. Well, throughout my career in business, I've used stories to help people remember a new skill that perhaps I'm teaching or a client, to understand what they're buying and to help them craft their own compelling stories that light the path to, in my world, sales success. Now, the human brain is just so interesting, and stories are just an excellent tool if it's used properly. So in this episode, my guests and I, we're going to explore the powerful intersection of storytelling and sales and how the Storybrand framework can be a game changer for your business, aiming to boost your sales success. So get ready to transform your approach to sales and business by harnessing storytelling and the storytelling magic behind it. So who is this amazing guest I am speaking of? Her name is Amy.
Amy is Amy.
Your new name, Amy.
That's right.
Amy is based in Oklahoma City. She overcame personal health challenges after leaving her beloved career as a registered nurse. Amidst the struggles and thoughts of suicide, Amy found a renewed purpose in guiding others to discover hope and purpose beyond failure. Now, dedicated to helping women balance careers and families without compromising personal or professional achievements, she inspires with stories, humor, and practical insights. Amy empowers women to forge their unique paths to success after setbacks, emphasizing the importance of living authentically and cutting through the noise. Amen, sister. Amy, thanks for being on the show. I'm really excited about our conversation.
Absolutely, Connie. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, your brilliance and your story and your experience, you bring so much to the table, especially with the nursing background, right? That empathy kind of was built into you, right,
Yeah.
as a nurse. And that's one of those transferable skills now with what you do. So let's dig in. Why is storytelling? Now, I know how I use storytelling, but I love learning other perspectives. So why is storytelling crucial in the realm of sales, and how does it impact the success for businesses or anybody that's in sales?
Yeah. So, we are inundated with so much noise today. You just said cut through the noise. We are now in the information age, right? Like we can get as much information as we want about anything that we want anytime. And we're inundated with messaging, sales messages every day, all day long. And like you said, the human mind is so interestingly wired. It's constantly wired to be trying to survive and thrive in our environment. Constantly, we're looking out for that saber-toothed tiger. We're trying to meet our Maslow's hierarchy of needs with food and shelter and safety and all of these things. And so unless our brains hear a story that brings us into a tale that we can see ourselves in, we don't hear the messaging all around us. We have to be brought into a story. If you think about the very earliest communication, cavemen on walls were drawing pictures of stories. And this is how we have communicated from the beginning of time, is through story. And so unless, I can't remember the percentage of it, like the human mind, unless thinking about a story, spends like 70 something percent of its time daydreaming. So, or thinking about how to solve its problems. So unless we're drawn into a story, we're not going to hear the messaging that people are telling. And many times, not only that, but a lot of business owners are telling the wrong story. They're telling their own story. For example, I like to use the example of a plumbing company. Me and my grandfather started this company in 1922 with 2 pieces of bubble gum and a rubber band. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like, I'm so sorry. And that's great for you and wonderful. And there's a time and place for me to learn that about you and your business. Right. However, the top of funnel is not the place I need to know about your story. I need to hear my story. I need to hear why I deserve a sink that doesn't leak, and I shouldn't have to have, water in my floor from a leaking toilet, and how I deserve someone to come and help me solve my problem, not solve my problem for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. People want to see themselves as the hero in their own story, and they want to solve their own problems with a guide. They don't really want someone to come in and rescue and save them.
And it's interesting because what you just said is exactly what I teach. It's never about us. Hopefully we're going to be the solution. Perhaps we don't know until that's right, have a conversation with who's ever in front of us to truly understand. And I often use Stephen Covey, right? The 7 Habits. His 5th habit, if you haven't read that book, it's a must read, everybody, but 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. But his 5th habit is seek to understand before being understood. So if I'm speaking to someone, your example, and I'm looking for a plumber, and I reach out and this person says, oh my gosh, my dad and I started this business. My grandmother had the same problem you have. You know what we did? Now you've shared a little bit of insight about yourself, but you've brought it back to my situation and connecting with me on how you're going to be able to help me. And I've been to too many speaking events where they've had the keynote speaker, and the story is all about them sometimes. And sometimes they don't translate it back to the audience and this is how you can apply it in your life, perhaps, right? So when we make it about us, it becomes just more noise. We're blowing into the winds and nobody hears what we're saying. So I love that context.
Yeah. Human beings are selfish, and that's okay. I mean, we're all wired to be selfish about ourselves. And so we're looking, even though we're hearing the story of someone else, we're looking how it can be applied to our life or our situation, for sure.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Or the connection, right? There's got to be the connection. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be in it, what's in it for the client or the other person. Explain to everybody the key components of the Storybrand framework and how those components contribute to transforming the sale of the business, whatever we're looking at.
Yeah. So the Storybrand framework is a framework put out by Donald Miller and his company, Storybrand. Building a Storybrand they have a book called Building a Storybrand. Anyone can go and pick that book up and read it. Our agency went through their certification process last year, and learned so much through that. But really, it's a storytelling framework. How most movie producers and writers and authors, it's that framework that these people use in their storytelling. And it starts with a character, and that character has a problem. Okay. And a lot of times they use like Star Wars or something to demonstrate that. I'm not exactly a Star Wars person, but I get the concept of, Obi-Wan starts out and he's got a problem, right? Like he wants to solve Luke, I screwed it up. Luke Skywalker starts off, he's got a problem, right? And he's got to solve this problem. Now, if he had the problem and then in the next scene, the problem was solved, well, we've lost interest, right? Like there's no reason to keep watching the story. He has to have a problem to solve. But if he just goes and he's like, oh, I know what to do, and solves the problem and saves the empire, well, that's also a boring story, right? So he has to encounter a problem, and along comes a guide to help him. That's the Obi-Wan, right? Like that's the person that comes as his guide to lead him through his problem, right? And the framework talks about the problem is not just it's not a physical problem. So back to the plumbing, problem. Maybe you have a leaking toilet. That's a problem in and of itself, that there's water on the floor. That's a physical problem, right? But we also have an emotional problem. Like, I deserve a home that works. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Like, I work really hard as a mom. I shouldn't have to be dealing with this. I deserve someone I can trust. So there is an emotional problem, and there's also a philosophical problem involved there. So, those are those should statements. Those are, it makes me feel like a bad mom. It makes me feel like I can't keep up with my household when this toilet is leaking. It's making me feel I have this physical problem. Then I have this emotional problem. It's making me feel all these sort of ways. And then I have a philosophical problem. Like, look, me and my spouse work hard. We've got good kids. We're good people. We pay our taxes. We clean the toilet. Why is this thing? We shouldn't have to deal with this problem in our life. So it's a threefold problem, not just a water in the floor problem. And along comes a guide who shows empathy. They say, man, we've been there before. We understand what you're going through. And then they have to show authority that says, we've been doing this for 50 years. That's where that one piece of that comes in. You have to show your authority, that you have the knowledge and the experience to guide them to their solution. So along comes the guide who offers empathy and authority in there, and they offer them a solution to their problem, right? And that solution is always 3 steps. If I burst into flames right where I sit right now, Connie, what am I going to do?
I would hope
stop, drop, and roll.
I was just going to say stop, drop, and roll. I almost said 911, but you're burning up.
911. Doesn't matter. Same example, 911, stop, drop, roll. All we can remember is 3 things, right? So if your sales process, obviously a plumber's got way more steps in getting that toilet fixed, but call our office, get on our schedule, live a better life, live a life knowing you don't have to worry about your toilet anymore. It's always a 3-step process.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, and you guide them to that solution with that 3-step process. And then toward the end of the framework, they talk about how you show them how they've had a transformational experience. They've gone from this person with this problem to this confident mom, knowing that her home is going to work. And you show them why their life is better by using you as a guide. And then you also sprinkle in a little bit of the negative stakes, like, the reason you don't, why you don't succeed if you don't work with us. I go back to those ASPCA commercials from years ago where in the arms of the angels, and all the animals are dying and they're asking you for $20 a month to support them on a Sunday morning. They took a little too far, but we want to sprinkle in a little bit of the negative stake. Like, what happens if you don't choose us as your guide to that solution? And you show them why their life is better on the other side of that. So taking them kind of through that story and using language that speaks to the solution of their problem is it's a slight change, but it's very impactful to the end user.
Yeah. And I think also, I know, like, presentation skills, right? That's a piece of the sales process. But I always say, when you're speaking and asking those questions and the client is giving you answers, right? They're using words that they understand. You should be writing those words. I say they're charged words. There's energy behind them, right? You should be writing them down, because now when you present your solution, their words should be coming out of your mouth. So they know you heard them. They feel seen. They feel heard. They feel understood. So I just give you a real quick example. I remember when I was a financial advisor 100 years ago, and the client would say to me, Con, paying off my mortgage, paying for college, putting money in retirement. I'm terrified I'm going to have to work till I'm 90. So in my notes, right, I wrote terrified. So when I coach people and they would say, I know you're nervous. I said, they didn't say nervous. They said terrified. That was a very charged word for them. Yeah. You have to let them know you heard them, you understand, and it's all good. We're going to make this so easy. You're going to go, why didn't I do this sooner? Right? That's that transformational piece. But it's exactly, words matter. And the energy, I think, behind the words matter as well, especially with your example there.
Right. Yeah. So like in that case, you're going, we understand at Connie Whitman Financial Services, we understand that it's terrifying to think that you might have to work until you're 90. But with our process, we get together, we make a plan, and you live, without anxiety, because you deserve to live a life of freedom from anxiety about your future. That's a very simplified version, but that's a different language than saying, I'll make you a millionaire, or I'll make sure you don't have to worry about your retirement. I'll do this for you.
That's right.
No. You deserve this. Let me guide you to this way. Let me show you the way. Yeah.
And empathy, I think, is such a big part of it. I think that transactional mindset of, well, here's your problem. Here's what I could do. And then you'll be able to retire at 50, right? That's not what I asked you. So we come in with our solution, but we're not really listening to the client. So I think that empathy, and I said this before we started recording, Amy, you coming from that nursing background, and now what you're doing at foundationally, you have to be an empathetic person at the core of who you are, right? It's not a put on, it is what it is. But I think every one of us has to include that. I understand, I see you, I hear you, and I'm here to help you with, and then fill in the blank with whatever it is. Let's talk about the secrets to crafting the narratives that not only are captivating, but also help that audience to take the action, right? The call to action. So there's movement at the end of whatever that conversation or story is.
I love that you asked that, because so many businesses are wanting that action right away. Like, they want someone to come to their website and click that button to schedule a consultation. Like, they want you to click to call me right now to book that appointment. And that's literally like seeing a good looking guy in a coffee shop or a bar and being like, hey, you want to get married? No, I don't want to get married. Like, dude, can we have a cup of coffee first?
Yeah, like stalker.
Could we introduce ourselves to one another and get to know each other a little bit? So going directly for the sale is not, and of course, it's a variety of industries. It's going to be different for everyone.
Of course.
But especially in my industry, you can't just ask for that sale right away. You can't ask them to marry you. Some people are going to be ready to get married, but most people aren't. So within that Storybrand framework, the way to do your marketing, especially as it relates to your website, is to offer a lead generator, what we call a lead generator, something for free. Offer them something for free. So going back to that plumber example, instead of book your appointment with our tech now, or give us a call so we can come snake your drain, maybe we put a guide for the mother on, because first of all, it's a mother calling a plumber, not a man. It's always the woman of the household. We identify who that client is, and then we put a tool for her to use. How to snake your drain from Barbie heads and micro machines. Or Hot Wheels cars, right? Like, we give them something for value. That's like going on that coffee date. We want to give them a date so that we can exchange some valuable information for their information, their name, their email address, maybe their phone number, just a couple of bits of information. You want to make that tool worth about $10. That's what people value their email address at, is about $10. So you give them this guide, they get something from you, and then they need to be going into your email automations so that you can nurture this person. Like, hey, you deliver that guide. Thank you for doing this. And then you start down again, that Storybrand framework of, with each email over a series of about 5 or 6 weeks, breaking down every barrier that they might have to choosing you as their plumber. And then eventually, so that's like, you can nurture them through that sales process without asking them to marry you right away. We have to date them, and you have to do that by giving value and showing that you do know what you're talking about. You are who you say you are. You're doing what you say you're doing, and you're not just some fly-by-night company that's only looking for the sale.
Yeah,
you're there for the long haul.
Yeah, and come in and damage my house right at the end of the day. So it's really building that know, like, trust factor. And you and I in our business, we say this all the time. You're not going to hire if you don't know who I am. You're not hiring me. Your need is there. That's great that you found me. But now, how do I prove myself before you even give me $1 that I'm the one who you actually need? I could give one quick example. One client, not a client yet, actually, but I've been following up with them for about 6 years. They weren't ready for me. They weren't doing sales training, whatever, right? It just wasn't a match. Lovely people. We've kept in touch, right? Really building a nice relationship. they need it's a bank. I work with banks, and their lenders need some help. So we're in the talks now. 6 years I followed up. They did not have the right opportunity that they needed me. Clearly they liked me because we always jumped on calls. We Zoom. How's it going during COVID? All of those, pieces of the puzzle. I have an opportunity now. It's almost like a passive income opportunity, but I created that because I built that know, like, trust by following up and staying in touch, staying in their orbit, remaining relevant to them, and them constantly coming back. Oh man, she always gives me such good information. Wow, that was a great article she shared, whatever it might be. So these are the things we have to make ourselves relevant. Otherwise, you're one in a sea of a million. How do you differentiate yourself? And that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, remaining top of mind and constantly
100%.
Giving value. That's the way you do it.
Yeah. So how can businesses effectively now align that brand story with that sales journey? And what benefits does that alignment, do you think, brings to their entire sales strategy or their, that sales piece of their business?
Well, I think the alignment really comes from within. Whenever everyone on your team, when you actually get down and take the time to develop that framework and that language, everyone from the C-suite to the person, the barista in the coffee shop or the person mopping the floor at night, everyone in your business should know that so that you're all on the same page, so that everyone is speaking the same language. And getting everybody on the same page is really the first key, before you're ever going client facing, knowing what you're about and what your mission is and what your sales team is doing it all for in the first place is really the very first bit of value I see from doing that. And then furthermore, again, just demonstrating that you are there for your client, not that your client needs you, but that you're going to guide them to their success. It's just such a different way of looking at things that brings that success to people.
Yeah. And I think we put the cart before the horse way too many times. And so I'm forging ahead. I'm the business owner and I'm forging ahead in my sales, but I'm not communicating it effectively with my team. So they're out spinning their perspective or their personality or their words, right? Which is out of alignment with mine. It's funny. I just wrapped up a 8-week training program with one of my banks up in New Hampshire. And it was 30 people that came through the program. And we had the last session, and the trajectory of the growth and them learning and then the applying and all of that. We've created a culture that all 30 people now, like in that last session, we were talking about, what did you learn? What could we do differently, or what could we do better? How are you going to, reinforce it going forward, right? That commitment. And the language was the same, Amy. It was really cool to see. So through, and it was only 8 weeks, right? 2 months. But created the beginnings of this culture because everybody understood what the value was, what the alignment was. How do we want to connect with the client, right? What is the vibe we want out there? We're not saying be Stepford wise, but what is that consistency going to look like? So no matter where the client goes, they're getting that same value alignment. So important. And I think we forget that. We go through the motions because it becomes a habit. But I think we can never be out of alignment. Otherwise, we start doing the misses, right? If you will, we're not on the same page with clients. We kind of do the mishaps, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Could you share some specific examples of businesses that have successfully used that in your travels, using that Storybrand framework to boost their sales, maybe highlighting some key takeaways from their experiences?
Let's see. Yeah, we worked with an attorney on this, an estate planning attorney, and have found massive success with it. Of course, it's a multi-pronged approach, but just changing the language on the website homepage from "we do this" to "you find this" with us, is just that tiny bit. And then bringing, all of that's like the front facing, but then their internal sales team, from the person that answers the phone to the person that books the appointment to the attorneys that are taking those appointments, they're all on the same page with what that language looks like. They understand the journey that their customer is taking. And then once they get them to that place, then that's where the sales team has to take their next steps, and really remaining very curious with their clients. And again, like you said, listening more than you're talking, because we know all this framework and that framework has gotten them to us, but that's the time to shut up.
Absolutely.
The sales team, that's the time to shut up. And so they have found that it's getting them more clients. And now that they get those clients to the potential clients to them, it's attracting them more. Now they're able to convert a lot more because they're getting the right clients.
That's right.
They're not just getting, anybody and everybody who may be interested in this thing. They're actually getting the right clients with the same values as them. They're getting the people who want what they're giving. They're getting people who want that guide. And now they're remaining curious on the phone, or on their calls and in their meetings, and really being able to bring them through the situation, their pain, and eventually leading them to that decision of making that estate plan for themselves. So we've seen a lot of success in those, especially very emotional industries, like that, where the sales cycle is a long time.
Yeah.
But we've also seen success in it with home services. Again, like the plumber situation, you deserve a plumber that you can trust, like one that's going to be on time and show up without his butt crack hanging out and all of these things. And so we've also we've seen this framework bring in the right kind of people instead of massive amounts of like flaky leads or, just fly by night type of people who are just toe dipping. They're much further into the funnel once they get in front of them, because it's the right language attracting the right people.
Yeah. And a couple of words you used in there that I think are real important. The curiosity. If I get on that call, creating the lead, whatever, but I come in curious about that person's situation, right? Whatever my zone of genius is, but what's that? I'm curious about the situation. I'm going to have clarity of what they're looking for. So now when I present my solution idea, right, whatever my recommendations are, I'm coming from clarity because we're understanding each other. We're speaking the same language. And then that's how we get the action, right? People can quickly make a decision because everything is jiving. It's, you were saying like on the website, you're saying one thing, then one person taking the phone call is saying another. And then you get there and it's like, this is a schizophrenic organization. They don't know what they're doing. I don't want to work with them because I'm confused. They're going to confuse my situation or whatever the solution that we're looking.
Yeah.
Clarity. The only way to have clarity is through curiosity. So I like those 2 C words. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on, it's we all know the 80-20 rule, right? Petros, whatever it is, but it's the 80-20 rule. I have found truly in doing this for 40 years, sales for 40 years, we really need to listen 70%, between 70 and 75. So I'm going to say not quite that 80%, because we need time not only to ask the question and then go into that receiving mode of listening, but then when we do our presentation, again, we want to make sure we're building that foundation and then stacking our solution correct for now, but also becoming a planning partner. And that's about 30% of the conversation. So active listening, humans, we have a 6-second attention span. We kind of suck at it. So how do we improve it? Like double down on your listening skills, people, because that to me is where the magic happens. So yeah, I love that. I love what you said. Yeah.
I had someone say to me one time after a one-to-one, you are the most interesting person. And I was like, well, thank you. But later on, I didn't speak. I rarely spoke. I asked questions during that entire thing. And I'm like, I knew everything about this lady, but later she's like, you're so interesting. And I was like, thank you. But if you want to be interesting, be interested, right? So I barely spoke, but she found me to be interesting because I was interested in her.
You know what's so funny, Amy? And I think that's who people want to do business with, right? I remember my husband had a conference and I came along, and because I had friends I had never met. We've worked together for years, and it was in Florida and they were local. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to come and then I'll go hang out with my peeps and I could do a little work from there while you're at the conference. Well, there was storms, so people couldn't get in for the dinner. It was a lovely dinner and they had paid up front. So the gentleman running it, the executive director, said, why don't you invite Connie? So I was so honored. I said, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. So I had never met him, but we're chatting. And like 20 minutes later, he had told me all of these very personal things. And he looks at my husband and he goes, she's a witch. How did you, like, he goes, how did you do that? I'm like, I go, what did I do? And he said, I can't believe I just unloaded all this personal stuff. Because you're a really good listener. I didn't say anything. I would just say, well, how old are the kids? You know, like I asked follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And
Tell me more about that.
And he said, I have never connected with someone so quickly. He goes, wow, that's a superpower. And I smiled and I said, no, that's sales. That's called, I was curious. I was truly though, Amy, curious and interested about this man. It wasn't a put on, but this is my sales skills, right? I was curious. I asked questions. I made him the center of my story at that moment, right? It didn't matter about me. I really wanted to get to know him because perhaps I could have supported him in some way. But I think it has to come from that truly altruistic, holistic, I love you, how can I help you perspective versus I got questions for you because I want to make a sale. Big difference.
That's
big difference in that.
Big difference.
Right? Yeah.
Huge difference.
Any quick last advice for anybody listening before I give your details and information and free gift and all of that? But, you know, a tip or two that people can maybe as soon as they finish listening, write down or think about, what would that be?
Think about what you're saying in your messaging. Think about what you're saying to your potential clients, and is everybody on your team speaking the same language? If you're not, pick up Donald Miller's Storybrand, Building a Storybrand book. Find yourself a Storybrand guide or a Storybrand certified agency if you want help with creating that language. But truly, that framework in itself, and we just barely scratched the surface today. It's so much more complicated than what we really talked about. But it's complicated, but very simple. And if you're willing to dig in and implement that in your marketing, I think your sales process will go much smoother. Your sales team will be on the same page. Yeah. So absolutely get involved in that. Make sure that your website's saying the right things because all the things in your head need to be out there. So put it all front facing. Yes. And yeah, I think you'll have a lot of success by getting your story straight and making sure that story is about your client and not necessarily about you.
Yeah. Amen. And it was funny, you used the word complicated and then you kind of rephrased it because it's not, it's complex, meaning there's a lot of moving parts to this.
Yeah.
But if you have a strategy like, oh, that comes next. Oh, that comes next.
Exactly.
It becomes very logical versus, I can't do this, right? But you break it down into, even though it's a process, you just simplify the process for everybody. We don't know what we don't know, right? I'm not a story expert, so I don't know how to help someone with that. You do. So again, it's like my process, right? It's a process. But I break it down into easy peasy steps so that it becomes digestible. And I think you do the same thing. So I just wanted to eliminate that word complicated too. We can make it easy peasy for you because, oh, by the way, we have a locked and load process, rinsed and repeat, that we've proven years and years and years and years with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Let me help you do the same. Right. So that's what Amy is saying to us. Let her share her zone of genius because, and I'm telling you, Amy, I had to hire people through the years because I know who I am and I know what I bring to the table, but now how do you write about it? What's the most important thing to articulate? We're complicated. My 40 years of skill, you have how many years of skills? There's a lot in our heads. What are the gems that we need to pull out? And unless you're the expert with that, I find it very, very difficult. So again, we need guides. And I love that word guide you kept using throughout, because I do believe we need guides that we don't know. We have blind spots. You don't know their blind spots until you have a guide saying, hey, shine the light here. Hey, shine the light there. And I think you're very good at doing that. Guys.
Yeah, it's all within you. It's within your head. You just need someone to help bring it out, organize it, and present it in the right way. Because you know about like you and your business. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Cut it down, simplify it, package it up beautifully, and hand it out in the same way over and over and over.
Yeah. And that's how we have success. It's that consistency that I think you speak to that well. Guys, check out Amy's website. It's amysingleton.net. I'll put it in the show notes. Don't worry. Email if you have a question for Amy, do amysingleton@heightdigital.com. I will put that in the show notes. And you do have a free gift, a free digital marketing audit, and I'll put the link. Can you just tell people what they'll get if they click on that link?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the bottom of amysingleton.net, there's a form. If you will fill out that form, put your website URL in there. I will have my team go out and do a quick 2 to 3 minute video, just showing you some areas of opportunity of what should be on your homepage and like where buttons should be, what some certain things can be, so that you can go and make those changes yourself and make your website more impactful.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's very generous. Awesome. Guys,
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about working on your website, definitely that information. See, again, it's number one, good information for you. It'll spotlight certain things that might be blind spots on your website. 2, you'll get to see the zone of genius of Amy and her team. And then if it resonates with you. And then 3, at least you're taking action at the end of this show. Again, information's a beautiful thing that you heard today. If you do nothing with it, it's simply information. As soon as we take action, download that link, sign up for that audit, right? Bam, we have action. That's when magic starts happening. And that's where we create the change that we're seeking, and hopefully doing it with a heck of a lot of ease and grace. So Amy, you're just wonderful, my friend. I love hanging out with you. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your zone of genius with my peeps.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. More to come, Amy. More to come. And I hope you guys will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on change or whatever that is, looks like in your life. My guests and I've got your back. We really are here, and we're here to help you. So take some of the advice or start thinking about that messaging, or what is the messaging you want. Do the form so that you get that free audit, and let's go off to the races, man, and let's make some magic out there. I love you all. I am honored to have you on this journey of change with me. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. Again, take action. That's the message of the day. I love you all. We'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. And thanks for tuning in.